Good morning or good afternoon. Today we'll be recording a video on Quizzette 822. Please write your last name, comma, first name, your class color, and the date. Number 1, it says solve for u. You're just going to solve for the variable, probably for every single question on here. The variable in this case is u. The inverse operation of addition is subtraction. The inverse operation of multiplication is division. The inverse operation of square rooting is squaring. So if I want to get rid of the square root on that side, I have this, the opposite of square rooting something is to square it. And what I do on one side, I do to the other. So by squaring the square root, it cancels and I'm left with u is equal to 5 squared. And 5 squared is 5 times 5. So that means u is equal to 25. Another way you can solve that is you could just think, okay, what could possibly make this statement true? The square root of 25 is 5. So you could automatically know, okay, so the square root must be 25. But the mystery number is just 25. It doesn't have a square root and it doesn't have a square around it. It's just u equals 25. Number 2, solve for g. So the inverse operation of squaring is square rooting. So when you square root a square, this operation cancels. So you're just left with g. G is equal to the square root of 144, which is 12 times 12. And remember, when you have a pair inside, you can take it out and you get rid of the square root. So g is equal to 12. Number 3 is just a one-step equation. You're going to solve for d. You're going to undo addition and you're going to subtract 5 to both sides. You end up getting d is equal to 10 minus 5, which is 5. Number 4, it's also a one-step equation. I'm going to add 2 because that's what I do on one side, I do the other. So I'm left with s is equal to 5. Then number 5, I'm solving for y. 2 is being divided, so I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. You end up getting 2y over 2, which is 1y. 3 times 2 is 6. Y is equal to 6. Then number 6, 3 is being multiplied. I'm going to divide it because that's the opposite. 3 goes into 3 one time, but I'm not going to write 1b. I'm just going to write b equals, and a lot of you sometimes think that's 0. It's impossible. 3 goes into 3 one time. You can also think of fractions. 3 over 3, that's 1 whole. B is equal to 1. Number 6, 2. So number 6 says solve for m. 2m minus negative 8 equals 18. When you have subtraction of a negative integer, you want to clean that up. So you have 2m minus negative 8 equals 18. That's technically the addition of the opposite. Okay, so you have now 2m plus 8 equals 18. Now I can do the opposite. What's the opposite of plus 8? And that's minus 8. What I do on one side, you do to the other. This cancels. You're left with 2m is equal to 10. Now I'm going to divide both sides by 2. And I have m is equal to 5. So notice that the first step that I did was add or subtract. And the second step that I always do is multiply or divide to solve. And you always do it in that order. You can recall DC MAM. The last 2 letters in DC MAM are A and M, add or subtract, and then multiply or divide. Number 7, it's asking about how many solutions does this equation have. So we're going to write DC MAM. I have negative 6n plus 10 equals 10 minus 6n. I'm going to move, all right, so destroy or distribute is the first step, but there are no parentheses and there are no denominators, so we're done with that one in DC MAM. Combine like terms. There's nothing on the left-hand side that I can combine. I remind you guys, the only way I can combine like terms is if I had another constant on this side or another variable on this side. Same with over here. If I had another constant or another variable, remember constant is just a number without a variable in it or without a letter. There's nothing for me to combine. So I'm done with D, C. Now I'm left with move the smallest variable. They're both -6, technically. This one's -6 and that one's -6n, but it's the same thing. Let's just go ahead and move it and see what happens. So plus 6n plus 6n, that cancels. I'm left with 10 is equal to 10. And then the next step in DC Ma'am says add or subtract. There's nothing for me to add or subtract or multiply or divide. I just have 10 is equal to 10. Is this a true statement? Yes, it is. It is true. So when it's true like that, it's infinitely many solutions. If you ended up getting like, let's say, for example, if you got n is equal to 2, that means one solution. If you got a statement that was like 12 is equal to 7, that's not true, so there are no solutions. And something a student pointed out right now is that number 7 on Monday is the same as number 7 on Tuesday. So go ahead and just do the same thing on number 7 for Tuesday. You can copy it now. And then another thing a student noticed was that my counting was off, so I do apologize. If you notice, there's 2 number 6s. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is actually supposed to be 6. This is supposed to be 7, and this is supposed to be 8. All right? You can fix the numbers if you feel that you need to, but otherwise, I understand it was my mistake. Good luck on this Quizzette, and as always, if you have any questions, please raise your hand or come and ask me.